I have a feeling that for the rest of the year, you and I will be talking about the debt ceiling and discharge petitions. First of all, to the debt ceiling, when do you think it will ripen to the point where Congress has to take action because the national debt is approaching the current legal limit?
So thanks for having me on, Lawrence. And there are two dates really to look out for. First, and I think there's already public reporting on this, it looks like by the end of this month, so literally just in a couple weeks, the Treasury Secretary will likely notify us that she has to resort to what are called extraordinary measures. Now, that still gives us a little bit of time, approximately 6 to 7 months after that. How tax collections look in the spring will also play a big role in this. But I think it's safe to say as early as July, maybe if we're lucky as late as September, would be the drop dead date by which Congress must act.
Now, I've done some reading on discharge petitions over the weekend. I read the rule, and I have to tell you, I've spent years reading Senate rules, and you always read them a couple of times before you feel you really get it. I spent the weekend on the discharge petition rules, read it over and over. It is the most complex, difficult thing boy, I don't want to read any more House rules after that. But so it's technically possible, but especially for the debt ceiling, it seems especially difficult given all the built-in waiting periods that there are for moving discharge petitions.
Yeah. So, by the way, I have about a 10-page CRS report I will send you that makes it a little bit more simple. But you made the right point, which is anyone, and I've heard a lot about discharge petitions, probably more over the last week than in my previous 8 years here. The reality is, as you point out, though, it is not easy. Just in terms of the amount of time that it takes, 30 legislative days on the front end, 9 legislative days on the back end. In terms of the real calendar, that's about 4 months. But also, there are a couple other tricky things to it. Most significantly is this: you cannot use a discharge petition on a Senate bill. So if we were, for any reason, to use a discharge petition, and keep in mind, I've only seen it succeed once in my time here. If we were to use that, we would already have to have an agreement in place with the Senate that they would pass it without changing even one semicolon. If they did that, then it would be dead and we would have to start all over again.
Yeah, and so it's the only theoretical possibility. And the reason, I don't think you and I would seriously discuss it unless the debt ceiling what was so important. The debt ceiling is so important, must pass. And you know that you have people on the other side in the House of Representatives who are happy at this point to crash into the debt limit and watch what happens to the economy worldwide. They're happy to take that chance. But because it is so crucial to pass this, every conceivable angle has to be considered, and that's where the discharge petition comes in.
Yeah, as you pointed out in the early part of your show, or maybe it was one of the previous episodes, sorry, after last week, everything is running together these days. But raising the debt ceiling was not a controversial issue, as you've pointed out. It was raised almost 100 times in the last century. The vast majority of those times, by the way, in the last 60 years, were under Republican presidencies by a ratio of 2 to 1. Ever since this century, and especially since President Obama, now they become controversial. But here's the deal. The Republicans, especially Speaker McCarthy, need to behave like they're in leadership. They need to do the right thing, raise the debt ceiling. We're not compromising on cutting Social Security or Medicare.
I don't know. I have a feeling that discharge petition getting through with the debt ceiling increase is more likely than Kevin McCarthy doing the right thing. Congressman Brendan Boyle, you don't have to comment on that. Thank you very much for joining us once again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.